this is Alexandra No. I thank you for joining me as I chronicle 40 reflections in the 40 days leading up to my 40th birthday. Please pardon the audio quality of today's round of reflection. I was in the car, the air conditioner was on, but I want to honor what I was processing in that moment. I do also want to give a content warning for discussion of body image and diet culture. Thank you.
I am not a person who does New Year's resolutions per se, but I am very much a person who appreciates and acknowledges time-bound cycles. Though I am a bit more of a winter-summer solstice, vernal and autumn equinox type. But the way that the year has played out, while I didn't think I would be participating, as I heard different people that I follow talk about establishing themes for the year, it just so happened that a theme started to present itself anyway. And that is the theme of health being wealth. Of course, this year was not the first time I had heard the phrase. I couldn't even tell you when that was, but I really took it in and embraced it this year as people that I loved and people close to me started to pass away from different circumstances. So I took the cue to really start prioritizing my health, and of course, knowing that the 40th birthday was approaching also served as a catalyst, because it is an age that can pretty much universally be agreed upon as no longer being young. And I'm Black, I'm full-figured. Many people in my family have health challenges, a lot of diabetes, a lot of high blood pressure. There have been strokes, so a lot of reason for me to consider that it might take some extra effort on my part if I wanted to avoid those circumstances, or if I want to avoid having to take daily medications. So as I was already thinking about that sort of thing, my job promoted a program that was designed to reverse diabetes and prediabetes. And I have been told at a couple of annual checkups that I was pre-diabetic, but it would be the sort of thing where one year I'd be pre-diabetic, but then the next year I wouldn't. So I didn't necessarily maintain it as an ongoing concern. But again, just the culmination perhaps of all of these different thought processes and particularly with the emotional tie-in regarding loved ones, I took that as another cue, like, let me go ahead and sign up for this. And so I started the program in February, and my personal goals were to lower my blood sugar so that I would no longer be diabetic, and to really get into a good and healthy range, not just be slightly below the threshold, But I also wanted to get my blood pressure in check, because it has been slightly elevated at quite a few checkups and check-ins. And it was, one of those situations where my primary care physician said that if I continue to come in with these slightly elevated numbers, she would want to put me on medication, which, again, the goal is not to be a person who requires daily prescription medication. So those were my personal goals. So I'm going to sidebar here and give a little bit of backstory. I grew up in the 80s, which were very much characterized by, aerobics and jazzercise and diet culture, like low-fat everything, diet everything. And my mother, succumbed to that culture. I absolutely remember her doing different types of, diets, and she also did fasting for spiritual purposes, but of course as a child I couldn't necessarily see the difference. She also weighed herself quite a bit, and to the point where when I grew up and was preparing to move out, I decided that I never wanted to own a scale because I did not want to be concerned about that sort of thing. And so while in a lot of ways that was healthy, it also meant that, over the past several years, as I have gotten older and experienced different life and physical changes, I wasn't always aware of them in real time. And in the past few years, when I did start to think, okay, maybe I should start paying closer attention to some of these things, it was hard for me to do that because it countered what I had already decided for myself in terms of, I don't ever want to worry about my weight. I don't ever want to be overly concerned about my weight. And so, fast forward to now, I joined this program for these two primary reasons, but because the overall emphasis is on health and not my weight, when I started to lose weight and people started to notice, it didn't freak me out in the ways that it has in the past when I have inadvertently lost weight. About 8 years ago, I was in a relationship that was not optimal for various reasons. I was also going through a lot of life challenges, and I was depressed, and so all of those things came together to, create a cocktail that resulted in me losing a lot of weight. And American culture in particular, though I'm, to some degree this may be true in a lot of parts of the world, automatically goes to the assumption that the smaller you are, the better you look, the better you are. So when I started getting all of this positive feedback, even though I felt so badly, there was a huge dissonance. So, as I mentioned, when I previously would participate in programs that, either were focused on weight loss or had, a consequence of causing weight loss, I had a lot of resistance to them. And a lot of times I'd even have, these strong, visceral, emotional reactions to participating in those processes. So now, because of that overall healthy theme, I found that when I lost weight, and to the point where I could see it in the mirror, and to the point where I noticed that my clothes were fitting differently, and yes, I do have a scale in the home at this point, and I could see the change there too, but there hasn't been that adverse reaction, that visceral reaction, that triggered reaction. And that has been enlightening because, one, I'll never be skinny. That's just not my construct. But because I'm in such a better space in all areas of my life, the mind, body, heart connect is much more present. It's all so much more unified. And yeah, I'm feeling good in general. I guess, I could make a pun here about literally feeling lighter. But really, it's about that emotional weight being lifted that is standing out to me. I don't make announcements about my weight loss, but I did blow up multiple friends' phones the other day when I had a checkup and found out that my blood pressure was in a good range. That's what I'm excited about. I was thrilled at my last physical when I was no longer pre-diabetic. That's got me geeked. So, yeah. So, and I know this can be a very, very loaded topic for a lot of people because, there's just so much around it. There's family stuff, there's social stuff, of course, there's the messages that we're fed through media, not just in terms of beauty standards, but also in marketing, So I would like to invite you to ask yourself, how did I get to how I currently feel about my body? Is it, what are some of the things that came into that? And then also, as a bonus question, if you say it aloud, does it still resonate? Thank you.